Okay, well, we lost our connection temporarily. I'm not sure whose end that was on. I hope it doesn't happen again. So I'm going to wait for Nicole to join me again, and we're just going to start from the top because we're hoping to save this live so that other people can see. So she's about to join. Sorry about that, guys. You just never know with technology.
I'm back.
Hey, I'm so sorry. Hi. You never know with technology.
No, it's all right. We're good. We got it. We're back.
Okay,
We're good.
So I'll just start over from the top because we want to save this for the replay. So thank you so much for joining us. It means so much to us that, you know, you're coming on our account and sharing your story, because your story has impacted Claire and I so deeply that we implemented changes in our own life with Claire moving into a new house, and they weren't going to cover or fence in a pool because they felt like at the time they thought, well, I've got, you know, they have a 10, a 7, and a 4-year-old who are all good swimmers. But when they heard your story, they thought, well, what if we have a play date? And, you know, there's a 2-year-old over, or, you know, a family barbecue. And in my case, I am a Floridian. We go home every summer for months at a time, you know, a month at a time. And all of our family has pools that are not fenced in. And, you know, I always kind of thought, well, the Y swimming lessons are fine, you know, and I'm just gonna watch my kids in the pool and it'll be fine. And that's like, I think that most of us think that way, that, you know, we'll be vigilant while they're swimming.
Yes.
But your story really changed my mind, and I'm sure like is driving my family crazy with like, put a fence around your pool, put a
Thank you.
on, and all that.
Don't stop.
It's so important. So thank you so much for coming on and telling us your story.
No, I'm so grateful. You know, and earlier, and then I know it cut out, but earlier, you know, you said that even though, you know, your account isn't necessarily huge, you know, I mean, I think if I could just reach one mom, really, you know, or one caretaker or one friend or one aunt or one somebody to really hear that this drowning happens to real kids, and it happens in seconds. And there are things you can do, you know, to prevent it. I mean, it is the number one cause of death for kids ages 1 to 4, and the number 2 for 5 to 19. And it peaks again from 15 to 19-year-old with teenagers. So, you know, even though you think like, oh, we're out of the woods, like we made it to, you know, they're 12, they can swim great. But it's just drowning is truly a worldwide epidemic, and nobody talks about it because it's sort of like you said. I know I fell prey to it also. Well, drowning happens to other people. Drowning happens to neglectful parents who, you know, aren't watching their kids. Well, my kids aren't going to drown, but if you had given me a list of, you know, 1,000 reasons why one of my kids would die and drowning was on it, it would have been the 1,000th thing I would have picked. Because I would have thought, my kids aren't going to drown. I'll watch them. I especially watch them when we're swimming. And, you know, and I thought, never would I have ever thought this would be my life.
And I think that we all think that way. And that's why I think your story is so impactful, because the details that you're going to share with us in a minute about the story, like, you can see yourself. I can see myself in your story. I can see myself and say that could have happened. It could have been me 1,000 times over every time we go to Florida, you know? So do you want to just start by talking about that day and the situation around the accident?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So we had 3 kids. Well, my husband and we always knew we wanted 3 kids. And so we had, our daughters were, had our 2 girls first, and we always knew we wanted 3. Like, we weren't, you know, trying for a boy or whatever, but we were so happy when we found out he was a boy, because we knew it would be our final. We were finished. We were going to be finished after 3. And just when we found out he was a boy, I mean, we were so happy to have this boy, and he came out just naked and screaming. And then that was pretty much how he always wanted to be forever, for his whole life. And that's all I wanted. And so we, every year we went to the beach. My husband is an anesthesiologist, and every year we went with these friends that we made during residency. And it was 5 other families. And this was our 7th year in the same house. We had started with no kids, and we were up to 17 kids, 9 and under. And it was just our favorite week of the whole year for everybody. And so, you know, we're at the beach. Our first full day was Sunday, June 10th. And we live in 6 different states now. So this really is like, we all come back together. We're so happy to be together. Everybody's looking out for everybody. It's just, it really is our favorite week of the whole year. And so that first full day was perfect. And, you know, I have 16 pictures of Levi from that final day of his final day of life. And in 14 of them, he is wearing a life jacket or a pedal jumper. He's flying a kite with his dad. He's wearing a pedal jumper. He's in the pool with his big sister. He's wearing his pedal jumper. He's eating ice cream in a chair. He's wearing his life jacket. So, I mean, I really thought I was taking water safety seriously. I mean, truly. And so later that night, the dads always took the kids crab hunting. And it was just like the best part of the whole trip. And these bright yellow custom made shirts. And when I put Levi's on, you know, we finished swimming. I brought him to, we were all on one side of the house. And so I'd given him a bath. I put his crab hunting shirt on him, and he was so excited to be one of the big kids. Like, he really got it this year, even though this was technically his 4th beach trip. This was the first year he really understood the crab hunting trip. So I put his shirt on him, and he said, you know, Mom, this isn't my pajama shirt. This is my crab hunting shirt. And I mean, and he was so excited. And I look back on that moment, and I mean, it was one of our last moments together. And I would never have imagined we would lose him before they even went crab hunting. And we're just sitting on the side of the house. He wanted a bowl of Cheetos. And so I gave his vacation. So I gave it to him, and he promptly jumped up, spilled the Cheetos everywhere because, you know, he was a 3-year-old boy. So I put him back in the bowl. And then I saw this little plate of brownies, and they were small. And I grabbed one. I thought, oh, he ate like anything chocolate, obviously. And so I broke it in half and sort of put it in his bowl, and, you know, ruffled his hair, and he was so happy. And he said, "Oh, a brownie." And that was our final interaction. And I mean, I had no idea. And in this horror of the past 10 months, I will say that sometimes there is definitely a small comfort in, you know, as a parent, especially a parent of small kids, we get frustrated. And I'm so grateful that our final interaction was just this sweet little moment of us splitting a brownie. And I gave him this brownie, I broke it in half, put it in his bowl, put the other half in my mouth, and then turned around, and I have retraced my steps, analyzed my steps, tried to figure out what was I doing? How did I not see him get out the door? My phone wasn't over there. I wasn't drinking. It was 6:30 at night. We were all finished eating, and we were all just hanging out on the side of the house. And I turned to close a bag of Cheetos. I mean, it was nothing. I said something to one of our friends that was sitting by the door, and walked outside on the balcony. And I was actually going to the other side of the house to get my 5-year-old daughter her shirt. And I didn't even know he was missing. And this is a little boy who was always Velcro to me. I didn't even know he was missing. That's how quick it happened. And I looked over the balcony, and I mean, I knew immediately. And it was the bright yellow shirt that I had just put on him at the bottom of the pool. And, you know, at first I was just so confused. That was every time I think back to that initial split second, it was confusion. You know, you can drown. He was wearing khaki shorts. You can drown when we weren't even swimming. And of course, then, you know, I panicked, obviously. And I turned and banged on the glass behind me, screaming. And whatever I screamed was enough to get everybody, running immediately. And later, of course, I asked one of my friends, what was I even screaming? And they won't even tell me. They're like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you were screaming. But I know it was bad. And I jumped in it, ran down the stairs. He got out a door with 10 adults in the room, including both parents, out heavy doors, down a flight of stairs, and was at the bottom of the pool. In less time than it took me to finish eating this brownie, when I jumped in the water to pull him out, the other half of the brownie was still in my mouth. That is how fast it happened. And when I jumped in to get him and to pull him out, at the same moment that I grabbed his arm, somebody else grabbed his other arm. And it wasn't until hours later that I even knew who it was. I just knew in this moment that I will relive forever and ever, of pulling my son off the bottom of a pool, that I wasn't alone. And again, it's all horrible. But I think that I'm so grateful for just these little small mercies that were in there. And later I found out that one of our friends the first one out, had looked over the balcony, had seen Levi as I was sprinting down the stairs, and he had jumped, actually like propelled himself off the balcony into the water, off the second floor balcony into the water, which is how he reached Levi the same moment I did. But at the time I didn't know who it was, and it's not the symbolism kind of that, of this, just somebody else being with me is really meaningful. But we pulled him out, and it's so crazy because as his mom, you would think I would just have been there, like right there, desperate to do something. But my husband's an anesthesiologist, and we were there with cardiothoracic anesthesiologist. So I knew that I just had to get out of the way. Like I remember I ran to the side, and I was soaking wet, raging at the universe. Even then I knew this had been 1 minute. I just needed 1 minute back. If I could just get 1 minute back, like what I wouldn't have done, what I still wouldn't do to have that 1 minute, back. I watched, my husband didn't know who it was until they flipped him over. And I asked him later, I said, what did you do? He said, I started performing CPR. And so he was performing CPR, and then our friends, of course, pulled him away, and they had an airway kit. They fully intubated him and everything, which doesn't happen. I mean, this was like the best case possible response. And they were able to regain a weak pulse, and he was airlifted to Mobile, which was about an hour and a half away. And but then we lost him later that night. I mean, it had shut his. I don't really know the technical part of it, to be completely honest, but I know that in what we've learned since is that, the misconception about drowning, that you have all this time, that you have minutes, and when it's a toddler who has really small lungs, very small lungs, their brain is so close to their lungs, they don't know to hold their breath. Levi did not know to hold his breath. So it's not like an adult where you imagine there's the chance that you can come to the surface, take a breath, buy yourself 30 more seconds. Right. So not only did he not hold his breath, but the water immediately would have filled his lungs, and they're small. And then not only that, but then they had to get the water out. So then that, so had he held his breath, you can hold your breath for 30 seconds and not die, but it's different than when you fill your lungs with water. And he just would have sunk immediately to the bottom. And I mean, we know that's what happened. And, and then the next day, I mean, we had to drive back from the beach with his car seat still in the car. I mean, we didn't, we had to go and tell our girls that he wasn't coming back. And, like I told you before, on the way home that first day, or when we were taking everybody home, the girls and everybody, when we went to Chick-fil-A, I just automatically got 3 kids meals. And it wasn't until like after we paid and they were in the car that my husband and I looked at each other and we're like, what do we do with this milk? We just got him a kid's meal. And it was horrible. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, it's every mother's worst nightmare. Can you go back and talk about where you were at, like what the complex you were at?
Oh yeah, like the actual location, you mean?
Yeah, the actual location. And
yeah.
I think when we talked on the phone, you talked about the fencing not being all the way around. Can you talk a little so that moms can envision where you were at, what it looked like, what the safety precautions were that he got around so quickly?
It was so fast.
And the pathway where how he got down, because I think that those details, I just want moms to understand that this can happen to you.
To real people. It happens. It happens to real people, and it happens so fast.
And so fast.
And Levi would never, I mean, of all 3 of my kids have been, especially in that toddler phase where they don't leave you alone like long enough to, do anything. And so I don't even know what, he never left my side. So I can't even figure out what lured him away from us anyway. It was actually a big house. It was 2 different like, it's sort of like a duplex, but it's huge. It was really big. I mean, we had 6 families in there, and with 17 kids total. But and so we were all on one side of the house, but like in the kitchen. And it was a very big, like, kitchen, living room kind of combined. So he was sitting on the couch wearing khaki shorts, his crab hunting shirt, surrounded by friends, eating a brownie. And the last thing I remember, I gave him this brownie, and he was laughing at this raccoon on America's Funniest Home Videos. And it stuck out to me because I remember he didn't know I was funny, but all the big kids were laughing. So he would, like, look at them, and then he was like, and he laughed. And I remember just thinking, those moments when you realize, like, your baby is a person, is really becoming a person. And I had these moments of him putting his crab hunting shirt on and knowing how exciting it was. And then, having, put his crab hunting shirt on, and then being able to, like, watch America's Funniest Videos with older kids.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking this. So that was what was happening. He was actually on the couch, like I said, and we were all in the room. I mean, my husband
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm trying to understand.
Yeah,
are you on a house with stilts, like on the beach?
No,
I remember you saying
second
you're looking
floor,
over a balcony.
Yes, we were on the second floor. So the bottom was like a big garage, and so, so it was on the ocean, essentially. So, so it had to be the second floor. And it was definitely on the second floor. So he got out the heavy doors with all of these, people in the room. My husband had just been sitting on the balcony eating dinner with my husband. And my husband, like, Levi wasn't eating because he's 3, and I think he ate, like, a sucker or whatever, for dinner anyway. And he was watching my husband's phone, and then I was like, I was worried about screen time. I can't even make this up. And I took the phone. I was like, hey, come inside. So my husband came inside with him, and I took the phone away because I thought, no, you need to, hang out with your friends, or get off the phone. We're at the beach.
Right, be a part of the group.
Yes, and and I mean, and then it would have been 3 minutes later that I found them in the water. And
so he got out
the heavy doors, and they were heavy because they were facing the beach, so they had to be those heavy doors that would would not blow open. Like, we don't know how we got them open. So we got out the doors, and then he had to go down a spiral staircase, and there was no fence at the top of the staircase. No gate at the top of the staircase. So we got down the staircase and then into the pool. And, even though he was crazy and he was fearless and he was a boy, he would never have gotten in the water without me. Like, I know he wouldn't have. I just know he wouldn't have. And we always put the toys up. We never store the toys in the pool. I don't think we were necessarily trying to prevent a drowning. I think we just didn't want to accidentally mess this pool up or lose a toy. I don't know. But every night after we left, we always would put, at the end of the day, we would put all the toys out of the pool. And this one night, it started lightning, like just a little bit of lightning right when we were getting out of the pool. And so they were like, oh, we'll just leave them in. We'll get them out later. And I mean, I feel, based on the proximity of where the toys were, he was at the corner of the deep end. And there were toys all around. I think he was reaching for a toy. Yeah. And fell in.
I've seen my 2-year-old do that, and I've jumped in after him.
And
it's very common. They just reach for it.
And he had no idea. And he thought, I'll just grab this, you know. And then he had such a false sense of security because I always put the puddle jumper on him because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. I thought I was doing everything right by using the puddle jumpers and using the life jackets, but. So he, and now, of course, when I look back, I realize, drowning prevention requires layers of protection. And I didn't have,
and so the pool, I believe you told me it had 3 sides.
Yes, it was the 3-sided. So it was, draw a picture. It was just a 3-sided fence. So it was around the outside. So then nobody could get, I'm really drawing this. I'm a visual person, so this is so informal. But if this was the house right here, and of course the fence surrounded it, so nobody could get into the pool, otherwise. But,
like from the beach.
So what you need, of course, is that very important 4th side.
Right.
And even if there had been at the very top of the stairs, had there been a gate. And I will say that since this happened, I mean, they have already put the gate in, at this house. And we've stayed in this house for 7 years. And I think, how did we not, here's the thing too, that just further reinforced to me that we just don't talk enough about drowning.
Mm-hmm.
It had come up before that we should ask for a gate at the top of those stairs. Like, we were like, oh, how is there not a gate? We had toddlers and babies every year. But our bigger concern was the stairs.
Falling down the stairs.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in fact, when there were actually two pools right next to each other because it was a duplex. So when I was overlooking the balcony on the second floor, overlooking the balcony, and it was two pools and a beach, far out. When I turned around and banged on the glass, and we had 5 other families besides ours. And like I said, we live in 6 different states. So it was Louisiana, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida. I mean, you're talking coastal states, and Illinois, which has so many lakes, and then us in Tennessee. I mean, you don't think about Tennessee typically being a water state, but there are lakes and rivers everywhere. So you have 6 different families from 6 different states that all are very water heavy, and 6 physicians, and 6 moms, including me, each of us 5 of us have 3 kids and one has 2. And every single one of them told me, when I turned around, banged on the glass, they said, we thought someone had fallen down the stairs. Even though I was truly overlooking 2 pools and a beach, because there's just, drowning is it's such an afterthought, I mean, it's background noise. It happens to other people. We can't even allow our minds to go there. It's so much easier to just find the loophole. Right. Definitely, versus trying to say, wow, this wouldn't happen to us. And we don't have a pool in our backyard. And so, but even so, like I said, I still thought I was taking it seriously. He's wearing puddle jumpers. He's wearing life jackets.
So let's talk about, I want you to reiterate, because I think this was what really connected me to your story. I want you to talk really quickly about how quickly it happened, like how a minute, and then I want you to reiterate, in case someone else is joining us, about the care that he got on site.
Yeah.
That pretty much no other child would get. Can you just quickly sum that up?
So I mean, it was quick enough that, my friend had made these brownies, and they were very small brownies because we had kids there. And I broke it in half, gave him half. I was still not finished eating the brownie when I jumped in the pool to get him. This is how quick it happens. And I actually was able to speak at the American Academy of Pediatrics conference just 2 days on Saturday. And that was one thing I said. I said, I know that right now the problem is there's nobody wants to be in the control group to figure out how long it really takes to drown. This is not,
right.
So the statistics on how long it takes. And then of course you hear the one story of the person who was supposedly underwater for 5 minutes and lived. But I have learned there's so many different variations and variables. Really cold water, apparently you have a higher chance. But it's just like a car wreck, just like how someone can be seriously injured in a fender bender, and then their car can be totaled and they can walk away, basically unscathed. I mean, this was truly seconds. And the American Academy of Pediatrics did just this weekend release, new information that says, the quote is, drowning happens in seconds.
Right.
And this mentality, this idea that we have that they're splashing and yelling and time, just further reinforces to us that drowning's not a real risk. And that is why it has remained the number one reason, the number one killer of young kids. I mean, it is. And Levi's, the response, and I've heard stories where immediate CPR, helped. I still think get trained in CPR, know how to do CPR, but that the biggest thing is you cannot depend on the reactionary. It has to be, you have to focus and that's what, to be honest, I feel like was happening before with AAP and with just in general with our culture. Everything was the focus on how to respond to a drowning versus how to prevent it.
Right.
And Levi had truly the best case scenario. I mean, he was fully intubated because we had not only anesthesiologists, but cardiothoracic anesthesiologists. I mean, they are epitome of the expert in airways.
Mm-hmm.
And even when my friend called 911 and said, and explained what was happening, the 911 operator said, no, that can't be it. They don't have that. And she said, no, this is what it looks like. And the 911 operator like whispered kind of like, oh my gosh, that's really, really good. And when the paramedics arrived, I mean, we're just going to stand over here, you know, because this was truly the best case scenario, and it still didn't save him.
Yeah. And that's what I want people to hear.
I mean, it has to be.
To connect to your story. I know we talked on the phone about, as a mom, looking back, what you feel could have saved Levi from your specific situation. Can you share those things with us?
Yes. I mean, of course, now I know everything there is about drowning and water safety and swimming and everything. And I realized that what we were missing out on and what is so vital with drowning and how to save your kids, and not just toddlers, because again, like I said, it's the number 2 cause of death for ages 5 to 19. Mm-hmm. and it really peaks again, especially in teenage years. And so this is a threat to your child from the second they are born. That if you want to get them to adulthood, you have to take this seriously. But the layers of protection. So of course the 4-sided fencing, but that really wouldn't be something we, like on vacation, we could have done like that night, obviously.
Right.
But what I could have done is deadbolted the door, or you know, so 4-sided fencing is huge. If you have a pool, you have to spend the money. You have to spend the money. And I know it looks ugly. I get it, but there's so much, you know, I have a friend who, you know, didn't have a pool, who I've connected with since, whose daughter's drowned in the backyard pool. And, you know, she says there's a lot worse sights you want to see. And then that's your child at the bottom of the pool. But the other thing, of course, swim lessons. My older girls could both swim when they were 3. And I stood in my kitchen in April of 2018, 6 weeks before I would pull Levi off the bottom of the pool, and read the policy, the then policy. The new one was just revised and released this weekend, but read that policy that said, wait until essentially it sort of said, wait till he was 4. And, you know, I'm a mom, I have 3 kids, you know, a job. My husband works a lot of hours. I am lucky because I only work part-time, but but there's just a lot going on. The Girl Scout troop leader, we live an hour round trip from their school. I mean, there's always an excuse of what you can't do.
It's expensive.
It's expensive. We don't have quality
lessons.
Time consuming. Logistically, then you got to take them. They got to get wet. You got to do something with the wet clothes. Like it's this is all real issues. And I stood in my kitchen and decided, standing in my kitchen, my husband and I decided to not enroll Levi in swim lessons until he was 4. Mm-hmm. And his birthday was last Wednesday, March 13th, and he did not turn 4. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I wish I could go back. I think not only to have given him the skills that he needed to learn to swim, but also to take away that false sense of security, because he'd only been in the water with a puddle jumper before, because I thought that was right. And now I realize how horrible puddle jumpers are just negative. There's no benefit. They teach your child to stay upright, so that when it is time to learn to swim, they've had this muscle memory where it kind of fights them, and it just gives a false sense of security. So if I could go back and put him in, you know, we don't have access to survival swim and ISR and infant aquatics and self-rescue. I wish we're getting it where I live. It's happening. It's happened. It's good. But at the time, you know, we didn't. But my girls both learned. I signed them up for private lessons. And honestly, yes, it was expensive, but it was reasonable. It was what I would pay for like 2 months of dance class. You know, I mean, we don't think twice about dance class or the leotards you need for dance recitals or any of this. But then when it comes to swim lessons, it seems like something that can be put off. Right. And so the private lessons really, really actually weren't that bad. And so I do think that, you know, the best place to look for swim lessons, this is a new part of the policy also, with the AAP that they just released, is not only the focus on swim lessons, but it has to be the right kind. It cannot be the ones that are teaching kids that water is fun.
Right.
you know, and I have friends and they just didn't know. They didn't know. And this is further proof to me that this is not discussed enough, you know, who have kids that are 5 and 6 and they can't swim. And they're like, oh yeah, well they've been in swim lessons for, you know, years. I'm like,
Right.
they can't swim, you know.
Yeah.
So the right kind of swim lessons focus on survival, self-rescue, teaching that water, you have to respect water. You know, I have so many people who have said, well, I don't want my kid to be afraid of water. Oh, and it like breaks my heart. And I just think, yes, you do. I promise you do. I promise you do.
There was something that your friend Morgan, on when you did the Today Show interview, your big takeaway for me was the brownie in your mouth. And I thought, oh my gosh, like she hadn't even swallowed a brownie. But then Morgan said, you need to think of the pool like a lion that is waiting to devour your child. And, you know, if those aren't powerful words, you know, like you gave us a wonderful picture in our minds of
Morgan's
a mom
so smart.
splitting a brownie. And then, you know, Morgan gave us these words that, like, every time I look at a pool now, or even of any body of water, I'm thinking about a lion.
You know, and it's kids can't understand the difference between respect versus fear. And so I'm not saying we still swim. We swam this whole past summer, the girls, even after Levi drowned. I mean, you can't escape water.
Sure.
We don't want to escape water. Water is some of our like favorite memories as kids.
Of course, mine too.
It can't be just water is fun. And since little kids don't understand respect, I sure wish Levi had been a little bit more scared of the water. Right. And you know, he had no fear because every time he was in it, he was in a puddle jumper. And if you can't swim independent, like swim on your own, self-rescue specifically, swim on your own independently without a puddle jumper, without an adult in the water, within weeks. You have to be reasonable. Like you can't go into 2 swim lessons and think, oh, well, they should be swimming. This instructor's bad. You know, I mean, it's going to take some time. But if after like 3 months, your kid still can't swim, then that's not the right place. Right. You know, and of course, every kid is different. My middle daughter, Reese, she learned very quickly. I mean, it only took her 6 lessons to learn and to save enough that she could swim. Yeah. And then my older daughter took a little bit longer. And I imagine Levi would have taken longer because he was kind of crazy. Yeah. It's just a real thing. I mean, he was a 10-year-old boy.
My boys are too, for sure. Okay, so for the moms that are watching right now and going to watch the replay, what can we do? You know, your story gives us motivation.
Please do something. Yes.
And now you have to tell us, like, what do we do to protect our kids?
Oh, please. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head with what Morgan said. You know, water is a lion. Water is a kidnapper. You have to start looking at water as a very scary. I don't want to say scary because we want water to be fun. We want to go to the 4th of July cookout and have fun. We want just to have fun, you know, but being aware of water. Imagine it was a loaded gun laying in the backyard. You're not going to let your guard down without knowing that the door is dead bolted, whatever. So of course, for me, I just believe in swim lessons so strongly now. I think that is just such a skill that we need to give them. And the AAP just released their new recommendations that say endorse it like starting at age 1. Like we cannot wait until they're 4. This is why so many kids are drowning between the ages of 1 and 4, is because I personally think it's the curiosity, but also it's the putting off the swim lessons. Right. So find the swim lessons. If you don't have someone that does, you know, survival swim, a swim school, those are usually very credible and highly qualified. Going somewhere that is really good. For me personally, and I think you just have to do it for your own kid, the group lessons weren't for us. You know, and I've heard from people who have learned to swim in group lessons, but the timing didn't work. I couldn't do the middle of the day. I couldn't do 6 p.m. I mean, it just didn't work. And so budgeting the extra money for the private, this was just like a private instructor. I mean, like I said, it was less than I would spend on 2 months of dance to get my daughters to know how to swim. So I think a private route is a great option. But if you go somewhere and it's just group lessons where your child, and I don't want to call anybody out, but or anything, like any particular place that teaches swim lessons, because there's variation across the country. But if you are somewhere like maybe like in a community organization place and it's just group lessons and your child is spending most of their time on the side of the pool or in a life jacket at swim lessons, then that's not the place to be.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna keep the
yes.
conversation moving just because we've got like 25 minutes and I want
sorry.
everything to
okay,
be
yeah,
said.
yeah.
So
the other thing is, I do want to say one more thing. So designated supervision is so important, because my husband was watching Levi, you know, like I said, until he got off the phone, and then we thought it wasn't even that we let our guard down. It just wasn't, I guess, as you know, like, because we weren't swimming. And so one of the things I did before I started partnering with the American Academy of Pediatrics was I created Levi's Legacy and their actual water guardian tags. And it just, I mean, it says I'm the water guardian, and you can personalize them however you want. So, you know, Anna's guardian or whatever. This just happens to have Levi's picture on it. And on the back, it's a reminder that it also happens, you know, during a non-swim time. And it's just truly something that someone can wear, you know, when you're there. And it doesn't even have to be this. I mean, you could make your own and laminate it. You know, I mean,
right.
It doesn't necessarily, but I do have a website for Levi that you can buy them, but it doesn't have to be through this at all. But I think that this is so important because it designates the supervisor. It's just cumbersome enough that you realize it's clear, but it also, it's a conversation starter with other parents. This helps you start that conversation.
Is the idea, if you are like in a group setting during a swimming time,
yes.
each adult takes like 15 minutes?
Yes, exactly.
And then you pass the card.
A tag. So you can say like, tag, you're the water guardian. Because 69% of children drown during a time they're not expected to be in the water.
Right.
69%, just like Levi. And this is happening at, you know, the 4th of July party, when you run inside and everyone's inside eating hot dogs, and you run to the bathroom, and during that time your 2-year-old slips out. So this is a reminder, not only when you're swimming, but when you are back inside the house. You know, I imagine had this been hanging up at our beach house that morning and I had seen it, it'd been like, drowning, the #1 killer? I had no idea, you know. So this is something else. I think also just holding their community accountable. You don't have great swim lessons in your area, figure out a way. Like, all cities have grants and funding. You know, try to work. Contact me. I will help you. You know, bring.
Can you share your website?
Yes, it's levislegacy.com. www. It's not on here. .levislegacy.com.
Just all one word.
Yes, LEVIS.
Okay, so we've got swimming lessons and the right type.
Yes,
we've got parent, guardian, watching the pool, designated.
Yes.
Pool watcher.
Yes.
Talk to us about barriers.
The 4-sided fence, you know, and that's a little bit harder in the sense that if you are somewhere and you're visiting and it's not your house. Right. But the 4-sided fence, had we deadbolted the door, and people have sent me so many pictures of the door being deadbolted, and then like they'll hang the tag on the deadbolted door once they're inside as a reminder to other adults, like, don't open this door.
And lock it.
Like,
right?
It's deadbolted.
Sure,
and
it's locked.
It. Yes.
Yeah.
And so
we would say like additional door locks, maybe like up high.
Yes, the high door locks, even just the like Amazon, like if it's your own house, you know, like the little alarms that go off.
So door alarms.
The door alarms.
What about
pool alarms?
Are those recommended?
Pool alarms and door alarms and pool covers. There's so much variation. So right now, like the AAP is saying, there's just so much variation among like the evidence base, like, is this really working or not? And don't let that be your only layer of protection. You know, the only issue with some pool covers, and I'm not saying all of them because I've seen so many that really are great, is if you don't put them on every time, you know, you have to put them on. And then there are a few where kids have fallen under them. So I think pool covers are one way to do it. It just has to be one part of a multi-part, which it really all needs to be. It really should be all of it. Designated supervision, swim lessons, dumping out water, buckets, toddlers who are drowning in toilets, and buckets, because, you know, imagine when they fall into reach for something, and then when you take one breath and then you know, are unconscious, you know, and then you drown. So anywhere there's water, it isn't just a pool and it isn't just a lake, it's a pond. And the reality is you can't fence in a pond. So just whenever you go anywhere, being aware of what is my water safety plan? What water is around me, and how am I going to prevent, my child from getting this? Dump out the wading pools. Make sure your bathtub, you don't leave standing water in there. I've heard kids who have drowned in not just during the bath, but like when the mom's off doing laundry and the kid like somehow gets the water on. And you think, oh, but that won't be me. But I promise, nobody thinks it will be.
Of course not. Okay, so you talked a little bit about Levi's legacy and that foundation. Can you talk a little bit more about your work with the AAP, what the guidelines were, and how they have now changed, and your involvement in that?
Yes. It like I said, my husband's a physician, and we love our pediatrician. And like I said, we were standing in the kitchen, and in April of 2018, just not even a year ago, and we decided to not enroll Levi in swim lessons based on the 2010 policy. And after Levi died, and I had this nonprofit set up within 3 weeks. I mean, I was like so desperate. It was summer. Babies were drowning every day. I was so angry that I didn't know. I felt like I was like, the killer was still on the loose. This person murdered my child, and he's still on the loose, and I have to stop him. I mean, that is what I felt like. And so I just was immediate. And after I developed this and I made these tags, a few weeks, and I just kept thinking, but what's the real problem? And the real problem is lack of awareness. And I thought, how do I reach parents? And I just immediately thought, well, it's with pediatricians. Right. And so I went to the AAP's website, and I say this, like I said, from someone who loves my own pediatrician. And it was my third child. Levi was a boy. I found out later 80% of children who drown are boys also. He was a boy, 3-year-old boy, right in that age range. I had taken him to his well-child visit in April. And I'm not placing blame. This is Levi's death, is on us. But I just kept thinking, why aren't they talking about it? Right. And, and my husband said, when he was playing devil's advocate, because I went out, I may have told him, so I think I have to take on the AAP. And he was like, please don't do that. But his argument was, Nicole, kids can't breathe underwater. Like, what else is there to know? And he was just playing devil's advocate, and I said, but I mean, we don't. He said, and then he said to me, you're saying you get everything you know about parenting from your doctor and what other parents say. And I said, yes. How else am I supposed to know what I'm doing? Yes, I'm not born knowing how to parent or when to get vaccines or when to switch their car seats out. And so I just knew it lied with him. And when I went to the website, it was inadequate at best. I mean, there was more about mosquitoes on the AAP website than there was about drowning. And there were 2 articles, and one was from 2017 and one was from 2004. And they were about, the reactionary, how to save everything. And I thought, again, I cannot emphasize enough, it's because of how much I love and trust our own pediatrician that I knew, I was like, this is the answer. And so I've been so, fortunate isn't the word, because I mean, I hate all of this, obviously. This is where it's so horrible. Like, if I could snap my fingers and do all of this. But when I went, and I managed to connect with AAP, and over the last 9 months, we have really partnered. And I have to say, they have been, it's been really incredible. I mean, just, for them to hear this message and to really say, you're right. We don't talk about it. We really don't. And it is the #1 killer. I mean, at Levi's, we talked about his 3-year-old child visit, how much milk he drank. I think he drank out of a cup, and never once did drink.
Right. So like when you and I were talking on the phone last night about what our pediatricians ask us, it's like, do you have guns? Are they locked?
Yeah.
How much screen time does your kid get a day?
Is nobody cares about screen time.
Smoker in your house? I'm not saying those things aren't important, but they're also not the killer of.
Can we start at the
#1
top?
Killer.
Yes, like let's start at the top. Like, this is the #1 killer, and I will say, when the AAP has been incredible, and we had the chance to speak at their conference on Saturday, and they released this new policy. We released this new policy about endorsing swim lessons starting at age 1. They released a whole new series of infographics on their website, healthychildren.org. So if you go there, and you can see new infographics can be printed out, new information on swimming, all of this stuff. But one thing I do want to ask parents and sort of leave this is, when you go to your well child visit, the next time you see your pediatrician, ask them about drowning, and say, hey, what can I do? Because then not only can they give you advice, but then maybe that even prompts them to continue asking it and bringing it up, for the next people coming through.
Yeah, that was the next thing we were going to talk about is, the moms that are here today are obviously very interested in your story, or maybe some of them are hearing it for the first time. How can we promote drowning awareness and move you and Levi's story further along and just get this story like worldwide?
I just love you. Can I climb through and give you a hug? It really, for people to hear this and feel invested in it, and is just it's just hard to comprehend. So thank you. But yes, I think that the biggest issue is the stigma of when drowning is happening and who it's happening to. So we have to, anything anyone can do to help break the stigma on it's not happening to neglectful families who don't watch their kids. That's not when it's happening. And then the problem is, then the news article that got released, I know like Levi's news article about his death the day after was horrible. It was so wrong. It said, the entire family was sitting down to dinner when little Levi wandered away. None of it was accurate, none of it. But then of course the news station gets clicks and likes and all this, and it boosts their ratings. So these articles that are being put out after someone drowns just further reinforces that assumption of neglect. Right. And it just further reinforces that. And so then you have this parents just continuing to find that loophole that it's not going to happen to them. And then because there are all these assumptions of neglect and implications of neglect, people don't want to speak out. But again, fortunate isn't the word, but the fact that there were so many people in the room when Levi drowned, both parents, physicians, that can vouch for, no, seriously, this is how quickly it happened. Right. I think it gave us a chance to strength and confidence maybe to speak out when we otherwise wouldn't have.
Right. Exactly.
But just bringing it up to people and say, even if it's, did you hear about Levi, or did you hear about Emmy, or did you hear about, I guarantee you there's a story in everybody's local community about drowning.
Right. And also your Today Show interview is on YouTube. And so you can, you can go to YouTube and you can click the share button and you can blast Facebook with it. You can blast Instagram. You can email it to every single mom in your mom's group. Please
figure if there is just when you're at the pool and not when you're at a house and someone has a pool, or there's a pond, or the next time screen time or organic vegetables or any of this other, I'm not saying those things aren't important, but the next time those things come up, talk about, bring up water, bring it up, and just say, I read this story. Did you know it can happen in seconds?
I mean, I can't even count how many conversations I've had with friends about screen time and how to guard our kids against negative things on the internet. But, I've even gone to play dates at friends' house, like where it was a drop-off play date for my older girl. And I've asked, do you have filters on your internet? But have I ever, before your story, have I ever asked, do you have anything guarding your pool? So I think that's a mindset change and a conversation, and I really hope that this Insta Live and the people that watch this it will spur on a different conversation.
It has to be a mindset. I mean, it really does. It goes back to what your reference of what Morgan said about the pool and the lion and the gun and the kidnapper. We have to start looking at water like this. And if you were to see someone put a 9-month-old in a car without a car seat, you're going to be like, whoa, hey, hold on, but when it's drowning, and, I'm almost, it's almost easier for me to come on something like this or on social media and talk about it. But the other day we were at Home Depot, and I am pregnant, and I'm noticeably pregnant, and it's a girl, and someone said, oh, what are you having? And I had my girls with me. And I said, oh, it's a girl. And he said, I knew the second I said it, I knew it was coming. And he said, oh, just all these girls, huh?
Can we as a society just stop saying that about genders?
Right. And, you know, and he meant well, and it was so
course,
sweet, and it was
yes.
fine, but it was, even so, even if I didn't have Levi, I would have also been like, yes, it's a girl, you know.
Right.
But my 6-year-old, Reese, is now 6, and she said, well, we had a brother, but he died. And so I know. So then I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And I thought, had this been cancer or a car wreck or something, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. I would have said, well, he died of cancer in June, or he was in a car wreck or something. But because it's drowning, even for me, it was hard for me to say out loud, he drowned.
Without the context of your story.
And when I said he drowned during a non-swim time, he somehow got out of the doors with both parents in the room and drowned in seconds. Yeah. But there's still just this stigma where we feel uncomfortable, you know, to talk about drowning.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I think we have about 5 minutes left. I want you to, if there are like top takeaways about keeping your child safe, or misconceptions, or how to spread awareness, what would your like top, I don't know, 5 takeaways be?
Okay, so thank you, sir. My phone always messing up. I would say, number one, most importantly, it happens to real people. Real kids drown. You never think it's going to be you, ever. You have to implement layers of protection. So that means the 4-sided fencing, you know, that with the right kind of pool alarms, pool covers, door alarms, high door locks, designated supervision, swim lessons, the right kind, where your child is making progress, where, you know, I do believe the roll to float survival method is important, because then it gives them a skill they can have for life, to be able to float on their back, even as teenagers, you know, when they get tired in the water. But it has to be the right kind of swim lessons. And that really is focusing on water competency. When you go to your pediatrician, ask them, you know, say, hey, what can you tell me about drowning prevention? Encourage them to spread that to other parents. When you're at a play date, when you're talking to somebody, go to my Instagram, Nicole Hughes 8, or Levi's Legacy's Facebook page, or the Today Show interview, like you said, and share it with somebody. Looking at an even broader picture, you know, trying to figure out how to get someone. We're actually getting someone trained in survival swim, or we're getting it funded through like our city, essentially. And this person is going to be trained in true survival swim, but teach lessons at the YMCA. So they're
that is a fantastic idea.
Yes. So
I have actually seen a couple comments come through. I've just been kind of looking as they come, and a lot of people have said it's so expensive to get certified. So that is a great idea. Like, pool your money into like an already good swim teacher in your town, and maybe like fundraise for that swim teacher to go get certified in ISR.
Go to your, and there are different things. So you've got ISR, infant aquatics. There are several survival swim schools that teach it. So then you can remove, you know, and I mean, we are a little bit fortunate in the fact that we obviously have the story and the support of our community, and we're so fortunate in that. But so now our goal is to offer, you know, these self-rescue survival swim through the YMCA at actual affordable prices, you know, and be able to access that. And that's really, you know, we need legislation around pool fencing, around life jackets and open water all the time. Sorry, now I'm trying to hurry. And, you know, being able to get better access to swim lessons for people. So
yeah, and we have a friend that actually, she had a big beautiful pool, and she hosted an ISR teacher at her house. So that's another thing you can do, is open up your space. If you have the space to offer your community, offer that up.
Figure out a way to help your community do this. You know, sharing the post, all of that is so helpful, you know, but then thinking about what can I do on an even broader level for my own community, and you know, reach out to me, and I can help. I mean, I don't necessarily have all the answers, but I know that nothing happens what I really want is for insurance companies to get behind it. But that's I got to work
maybe
on
that's you attacked the AAP, and maybe the insurance companies are next.
I hope so.
And
The AAP has been
we live
wonderful.
in DC, so you have somewhere to stay when you come
stay with you.
become a legislator and a lobbyist for
I have to say safety. The AAP partnership has just been incredible beyond anything I could have imagined. They really are such powerful advocates for children, and I feel so grateful and so hopeful and so inspired by how that the changes that have been made. So I'm hoping that the legislative changes and the insurance companies and all of that will hopefully follow suit.
Yeah. Well, you are definitely a mom on a mission, like if I've ever seen one. And I just personally want to thank you so much because I have a very rambunctious, curious, almost 3-year-old. And I have 3 parents with no pool fence and doors that are open and closed and 2 older kids that distract me. And
yes. It's your parenting. I mean, we can sit here and say I would never for a second take my eyes off my kid.
No, I
was closing a bag of Cheetos.
I looked back on details of your story and said that could be me. And so, you never know if the situation was going to line up for it to be you, but I really do feel like, you could have saved Ford's life. I really do. And I thank you so much for your bravery and you sharing your story and just, rising up through your grief to save other people's children.
I really
and I don't know
that
there's like anything more heroic or a more, a better picture of like brotherly love than, saving other people's kids.
I have to say on that note though, like people like you and like just everybody who is watching this and who has reached out to me at all, whether it's my family or friends or just strangers on social media, have been so vital to this mission. Like it isn't really me. It's actually not me at all. It really isn't. It's just this combined force of this village, and it's so easy to look at the news and look at whatever and think how evil our world is. But I have seen so much goodness in the world and just each person who shares and each person who has just been so supportive. This is definitely a shared mission. It's really not me at all. It's everybody who's listening and you for reaching out to me. And
we also
want to remember,
and we also want to remember Levi through your story and through your mission, and know that his life mattered and it's saving lives. And so thank you for sharing your story.
Well,
and I really want to encourage you I know you've been talking a lot and I've been following comments, but I have seen over and over again in these comments, you're the reason I'm getting ISR certified. You're the reason my kid is in ISR swim lessons. So if you have a chance later on, I'm going to save this and hopefully it will be saved in IPTV.
Okay.
But go read those comments because I just think that, every now and then you're going to get tired.
Thank
you.
And
if you can go back and look
it's so motivating.
I know you're making a huge difference.
People are so nice. I mean, I know that sounds so trivial to say, thank you for being nice, but I've learned so much in the last 10 months about water safety and drowning. But I also feel like I've learned so much about just humanity and it really means so much to me to feel this connection with so many people and for people to be courageous enough to hear the story. That takes courage to really allow yourself to let your mind go there, but I really appreciate that. And if anybody, has questions about swimming or what they can do, then my Instagram, it's I think I was tagged, right? So
and I will save this Insta Live and you guys can share it and I'll in my stories I have you tagged. Go follow Nicole, follow her story, go to levislegacy.com. And thank you all the people that have joined us today and shared the story. Keep sharing it. Let's keep moving this message forward.
We can change this for the future. We never know whose kids, whose grandkids, whose nieces, whose nephews are going to be impacted by this. I mean, I think that, and I don't even mean just Levi, but I mean just like all the people fighting this mission. It's not just me. There's so many people. Yeah. And we truly can change the future and stop this.
Watch those statistics go down together.
Let's do it. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, girl. Thank you everybody for joining us.
Thank you. All right. Bye. Thank you.